Hello, this is Ms. McCauley, and this is part 2 for how to solve real-world ratio problems.
Okay, so when we solve rate problems, it's best to start by finding the unit rate. You guys have already learned about the unit rate earlier in this unit, and if you recall, the unit rate means how much is it for one, okay? That's kind of the way I always think about it in my head is the unit rate is how much for one. So that's going to be a key idea in solving some of these rate problems. So if you are still struggling with the idea of unit rate, you probably want to go back and review that before you move on with solving some of these real world problems related to rate, because again, it's a really important idea here. All right, our first example says that Jeremy drove his motorcycle 120 miles in 3 hours. At this rate, how many miles can he drive in 5 hours? And at what rate did he drive his motorcycle? So as I just mentioned, the first thing that we're going to want to do is find our unit rate. What we know so far is that he drove 120 miles in 3 hours. Okay, and finding the unit rate means how much for one. So in this case, we're dealing with hours. So how many miles did he drive the motorcycle in 1 hour? So again, what we can do is we can divide 120 by 3, or when we think of kind of thinking back to equivalent fractions, which is what we just did, to get from 3 to 1, we need to divide this by 3. Okay? Whatever we do in the numerator, or in the denominator, we're going to have to do in the numerator. So we're going to have to divide that by 3 as well. So let's take it off to the side here and figure out how many times 3 goes into 120. Well, 3 goes into 12 4 times, and of course we need to include our 0. So here we would get 40 miles. Again, our units stay the same in equivalent fractions. All right, so we have 40 miles there. Our unit rate means that Jeremy is able to drive 40 miles in 1 hour. Okay, the next thing that we're going to need to do is after we find that unit rate, we're going to have to multiply. And we have to go back to the problem to see what we're going to have to multiply by. So again, let's read what it says. He drove his motorcycle 120 miles in 3 hours. At this rate, how many miles can he drive in 5 hours? So if we know he can drive 40 miles in 1 hour, we're going to have to take that 40 miles and multiply it by 5 hours. Okay, we can set up our multiplication problem. 40 times 5 is going to be 200. Okay, and finally, just like any word problem that we would do, we need to make sure that we clearly have answered our question. So our final answer is that Jeremy, Jeremy, can drive 200 miles in 5 hours, driving at a rate of 40 miles per hour. So he's able to drive 200 miles in 5 hours if he's going 40 miles per hour. Okay, let's try one more problem, and then I will let you guys go and practice this concept and get some more practice with additional problems. Okay, here's our next rate example. Julie spent $28 on 2 DVDs. At this rate, how much would 5 DVDs cost? And at what rate did she spend her money? So the first thing again that we're going to do is to find the unit rate. The unit rate means how much is it for 1 DVD. So we're going to set this up, $28 divided by 2 DVDs. Okay, you can go ahead and just divide, but I want to show you using equivalent fractions as we've done in the past, because because what we're trying to do is figure out how much is it for one DVD. Well, of course, to get from 2 to 1, mathematically, we're going to need to divide by 2. So we're going to be doing the same thing here. Okay, 28 divided by 2. Let's do the math off to the side. 2 goes into 2 once. Bring down our 8, and 2 goes into 8 4 times. So we're left here with $14. Okay, and what that means is our unit rate is $14 per one DVD. So one DVD costs $14. But the problem is asking us, at this rate, at $14 per DVD, how much would 5 cost? So then what we need to do is take our $14 and multiply it by 5 DVDs. Okay, so let's go ahead and show our work over here. 4 times 5 is 20. 5 times 1 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So here we would get 70. Okay, so again, this equals 70. And finally, we want to make sure our answer is very clear. So the way that we would write our final answer is that Julie would spend $70 on 5 DVDs at a rate, which in this case again means like the price of $14 per DVD. Okay. So again, when we're solving our rate problems, the first thing we're going to do is find our unit rate, in other words, how much for one, and then we're going to multiply that by whatever the number is given in the problem. Okay, and again, anytime we're doing any word problems, we need to make sure that we're clearly answering every question that's asked in the problem. And we also want to make sure that it makes sense. So in this case, we got an answer of $70 on 5 DVDs. Well, that sure makes sense if we know that each DVD was about $14. This seems like a reasonable answer. Okay, I hope that helped, and now you are ready to go ahead and complete the note check, and then you can also move on to the next step to practice additional problems. Please make sure that you ask your teacher if you have any questions.